have games that leave some sort of lasting impact on us for one reason or another. Silent Hill 2 is one of those special games, at least for me. If you've watched my previous video for Silent Hill 1, you'll know that I was a very latecomer to the series, and I actually started playing these games backwards, starting with Silent Hill 4 The Room. However, before I really undertook my great journey down the Silent Hill franchise route, I had already heard about Silent Hill 2. I had heard about how great it was and how it was the best within the series, and I personally didn't know why, but that it was just going to blow my mind when I did get around to playing it. After several months of saving, I was eventually able to get my hands on a copy of Silent Hill 2, and I sat down that night, switched off all the lights, and I didn't stop playing until the wee early hours of the morning. I was completely hooked, and truth be told, the only reason I stopped playing was because I really needed to get some sleep. But when I woke up again, I switched that PlayStation 2 back on and I continued playing, like a true gamer. I think for me, Silent Hill 2 is special for a lot of reasons. Sure, it is a good game, that's not up for debate here, but it's special for another reason: theory crafting and fandoms. Before I played this game, I didn't really get into theory crafting or fandoms for games. I played this game to death. I reached all the different endings, beat it on all the difficulties, did New Game Plus, I did all the stuff I could do with this game. And, I started crafting theories about who James was, or who the town, is, question mark. I looked at all the monsters, and I tried to figure out how they fit in, and maybe the music meant something. I'm sure that there was meaning behind it all, and I was, determined to figure it all out. And I came up with all sorts of different wild theories about it. And it was the first time that I also became active on a lot of websites, and I started chatting with others in threads about different things. Like I went on to NeoSeeker and... Wait, was it NeoSeeker? I can't remember. I went onto forums and I started talking to others about all of this stuff. And it was also the first time I suddenly didn't feel so special, because it turns out there's a lot of people out there who had the same thoughts as me. But that's not the point. The point is, the game took me down a wild, deep rabbit hole. And to my friends at the time, I probably came off like that Pepe Sylvia meme, trying to explain all my crazy theories and how they tied together. I probably looked real crazy, but that was a long, long time ago. And honestly, I haven't touched Silent Hill 2 in many, many years. And to my shame, I've forgotten a lot about the game and the theories I crafted about it. But that's what makes this video so special. I get to dive back into this game, and I get to share it with you. So, does this game hold up like I remember? Does it still have those spooky, scary scares? Does it ever explain how Eddie got a hold of his pizza? But more importantly, should you play it? Well, to answer those questions and more... Nah, I'm kidding. I'm not going to make you wait. I already hinted at it earlier anyways. Silent Hill 2 holds up pretty much in every single regard you could ever really put it to. You should 100% play it if you can get your hands on a copy of the original. If you can't, then you should probably play the upcoming remake of the game, if that's any good. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully it is good. But anyway, if you want to just stick around out of morbid curiosity and hear my crazy thoughts, then by all means, please stick around. So, let's talk about Team Silent's PlayStation 2 horror masterpiece, Silent Hill 2. And if you've been around these parts before, then you know what's coming next. I gotta warn you about the spoilers. I'm gonna spoil the entire gosh darn story of the game, some of the endings, and even explain some of the theories I have about this game. And all of that goes into spoilers. So if you'd rather go off and experience this gem for yourself, then please do that. Because from this point forward, there be spoilers. Arr, me matey. I don't know why I'm doing that for Silent Hill. That would make more sense for something like Sid Meier's Pirates, but anyway. Another thing I quickly wanted to address, if you haven't already noticed, just like the first game of, Silent Hill, this is running on emulation. I know, but what can you do? This was surprisingly difficult to get running correctly. I don't know why it was, but this is the best I could get it running. I know it looks bad. I know it's got some jank here and there in the cutscenes and stuff, but I did my best. And thankfully, I did learn a lot going forward, so future PS2 games will look much better. But anyway, take my hand, grasp it tight, because you and I are about to enter into the foggy town of Silent Hill 2. Here we go! In a dingy roadside rest stop bathroom, a man named James looks at himself in a mirror, perhaps wondering if he's lost his mind. He touches his face to even make sure he's awake and not dreaming. You see, he's driven to the outskirts of Silent Hill for a reason, a very crazy reason. As he exits the roadside bathroom and looks out over the town, he thinks again to himself about why he is here. He puts his hand in his jacket pocket and pulls out a letter. A letter he recently got from his wife, which on the surface sounds fine, right? Except his wife passed away from an illness 3 years ago. So getting a letter from her should be impossible. He reads the letter, and in it his wife Mary tells him that she'll be waiting for him in their special place. James puts the letter back in his pocket and wonders, could his wife really be here? Could she even be alive? Is that even possible? Well, it's that possibility that drove James to come here in the first place, to look for Mary. If there's a slim chance that Mary is still alive and is here waiting for him in their special place, well, he's gonna take it. Who wouldn't, right? James takes one last look at the town and the lake beside it before starting his long walk down a scenic path in to Silent Hill. Dense fog surrounds him as he walks along the path into town, and a strange sound makes him pause and look around. He feels as though he's being watched, but he can't see anything, especially in the thick fog. But it makes him quicken his pace just a little bit. Eventually, James makes it towards a small cemetery and bumps into a young lady whom he accidentally startles. She introduces herself as Angela and explains that she herself came to town looking for someone just like he did, her mother. James explains that he has his own reasons for coming to town and that he too is looking for someone, but he doesn't say who. James confesses that he's gotten a little bit lost, but thankfully Angela points him in the right direction. But just before he's able to leave, the young woman reaches out for him and says that something's wrong with the town and that maybe he shouldn't go there. But James ignores the warnings, nods, thanks her, and leaves. After a little bit more time walking around, and thanks to Angela's directions, James finally enters into the town of Silent Hill proper. It's quiet, very quiet. Nobody is around at all. Still somewhat unfazed, James continues further into the town towards Rosewater Park, the place in town he believes is the special place that his wife mentioned in her letter. However, on his way, he comes across a gruesome grisly sight: blood on the road. A lot of it. In fact, it looks like just further down the road, somebody is stumbling around in the fog. Worried they might be injured, James follows after the person until the trail runs cold at a tunnel. James can't see the person around, but he notices this radio giving off a loud static sound. He climbs across some construction gear and wood and into the tunnel to check out this radio. However, when he does, he catches a glimpse of something. He turns his head and notices the person in the darkness. Only it isn't a person, it's some sort of horrific monster seemingly eating a dead body. The monster turns its attention to James, who grabs a plank of wood to defend himself. The monster attacks, and James is left with no choice but to beat the thing to death out of self-defense. After it's dead, James now understands what Angela was talking about. Something really weird is going on in this town, which is later backed up when James continues further up the road, only to find that it's seemingly sunken into the ground, and it goes as far as the eye can see, all around the town. James then zigzags up and down the road so he can try to make it to Rosewater Park, however, he can't. The only way forward is through an apartment building. So, with no choice left, he steps into Woodside Apartment Building. For the most part, the apartment building is, well, very, very dark and lifeless, just like the rest of the town. The only sound James hears is his own footsteps. Sure, now and again he comes across a monster, but it's mostly empty. As James makes his way around the building, searching for some way out, he comes across an odd sight. A flashlight, which on its own is not crazy, but it's attached to an outfit. An outfit his wife Mary commonly wore. He reaches forward and takes the flashlight from the clothes, and the moment he does, a new monster comes to life, a strange mannequin-like thing made mostly out of legs. Ugh, creepy. With the flashlight in hand, James can now make his way around the apartment building with a little bit more ease. It was so dark before he couldn't really tell where he was going or what was happening, but now with this flashlight, things are looking brighter. Things are looking brighter. Please laugh at my joke. Please. I worked real hard on that one. Please. After a little searching, James finds a key for a locked door he found while looking around. Only problem is, the key is on the other side of a barred off hallway, which in of itself is a very strange thing to have in an apartment, but hey, whatever. He gets down on his hands and his knees, sticks his hand through the bars and tries reaching for the key, and almost when he gets it, a girl steps out of the darkness, kicks the keys away, steps on his hand, and then runs off. Well, I was not expecting that at all. What is a little girl doing in a place like this anyway? But, well, doesn't matter. James doesn't have time to dwell on this. He needs to find another way around, and that key is now totally out of reach, so... Shucks. It's a shame we really don't have a long plank of wood we carried around as a weapon on us that would extend our reach to be able to reach those keys and be able to drag them closer to us and then, you know, take the keys that way. Oh, it's such a gosh darn shame we just don't have a long plank of wood. Well, but even if we did, James is a man. He does things the hard way, right? Shortcuts off of stinky girls. I'm kidding. Anyway, I lost track. Anyway, the harder the task, the better. Anyway. As James searches deeper into the apartment complex, he comes across a welcome sight, a flashy new 9mm handgun, so things are really starting to look up now. After leaving the room and walking down the maze-like hallways, seriously, who structures an apartment complex like this? But then again, I've never been in an apartment complex, so maybe this is normal, so anyway, whatever. He hears a blood-curdling scream, and as he runs towards where the sound came from, his radio starts going wild, more so than normal. It's picking up a monster, a really big monster. This is confirmed when he comes face to face with a gigantic monster standing motionless in the hallway, staring right at him. Thankfully, this thing is on the other side of some metal bars, but still, something about this hulking, massive monster really unnerves James. It has a strange apron on, and it has a giant, rusted metal pyramid helmet. The whole thing is just giving off a bad feeling. James backs away and enters into a room only to find a dead man in a chair. This must have been who screamed right before death, and who killed him probably was that gigantic monster we saw outside. This naturally spooks our hero, but he pushes forward, solving some puzzles, one in the form of clocks, and another one where he has to stick his hand in some strange holes. But eventually he makes it to the other side of a blocked off hallway, and it's the same side where that strange pyramid head monster was standing moments ago. Thankfully though, he is gone. But where did he go? Well, the answer to that question comes when James enters into another apartment and comes face to face with the beast. It stands in the kitchen doing things to another monster, and James freaks out and hides in a closet. But Pyramid Head notices something and stops what he was doing, stands right in front of the closet, almost as if he knows James is in there. This freaks James out, understandably so, and he grabs his handgun and just starts shooting wildly at the beast through the closet door. The beast is taken by complete utter surprise and just leaves the apartment. I don't know why, but he does. So what in the world is that thing? Did the bullets even affect it, or was it just playing with its food, so to speak? Who knows? Who cares? This isn't the time for pondering. We need to get the hell out of this place. James continues his long search, and surprise, surprise, he comes across another odd sight. A dead body in an open fridge and the sound of somebody puking close by. James investigates the sound and finds an overweight lad wearing a backwards baseball cap in a bathroom. This is Eddie. Eddie starts claiming he didn't kill the man, that he was just like that when he came in here, and James, he didn't even ask anything. Eddie just started blurting all this information. Eddie then explains that he ran into a monster which scared him into this apartment room and found the body like that, and well, now he's in the bathroom. James accepts this and asks Eddie if he's from Silent Hill, but he isn't. It turns out something called him here, much like it did to James. James nods and tells Eddie that he should leave this town as soon as possible because it's far more dangerous than even James thought was possible. Eddie tells James that he will, and the two part ways. So that makes 3 people we've met so far. Angela, the woman we met in the cemetery, the girl who stomped on our hand and kicked the keys away and we haven't seen since, and now this Eddie fella. So that's pretty weird. James leaves and continues searching the apartment complex, and this time, thankfully, he finds an exit and thus a way forward. Only this exit leads into a neighboring apartment building, and so James takes it and enters inside. Only this apartment is far more run down than the one we were just in. Still, James makes himself at home. You know, he just sticks his hand in a gross blocked toilet. Just does what normal people do. James has this ritual. Like anytime you go into a person's house, some people take off their shoes. Some of us light candles to feel more comfortable, and other people, like James here, we just stick our hands into gross blocked toilets, to each their own. I'm not judging, hey, do what you gotta do, right? Anyway, after even more searching in this decaying apartment, James finds Angela of all people. She's laying on the floor, seemingly transfixed on a mirror in front of her, and she's holding a big knife in her hand. James knows something might be wrong with her, so he tries to speak with her, hopefully trying to talk her out of what she might be thinking about doing with that knife, if you catch my meaning. However, Angela is distant, and she only tells James that he's just like her. James refutes that statement, and he asks if she found her mother yet. Angela tells him that she hasn't, and James asks if she lived in this apartment or even in the town. And this makes Angela become rather animated and aggressive. She asks how he could possibly know such information. James backs off a little bit and tells her only that he assumed her mother would be here in the town or lived in this apartment because this is where Angela came looking for her and nothing more. Angela calms down and sighs, then asks if he found who he came here looking for. James tells her that he's looking for his wife, but that he hasn't found her yet, which isn't a surprise since she died 3 years ago. Angela understandably finds that piece of information rather weird, and James quickly addresses the fact that he isn't crazy, he knows she's dead, but he got this letter and, well, he doesn't think he's crazy for coming here. He quickly changes the subject as Angela stands up, and he tells her that he finally understands what she meant about the town earlier when they met back in the graveyard. Angela nods and turns to leave the room to continue on her own search, but James points at the knife and asks if she's planning on taking it with her. Angela looks at the knife and asks James if he'll hold on to it for her because she's worried what she might do with it if she keeps it. James agrees and reaches to take the knife from her, but Angela screams and freaks out. She points the knife at James, but then quickly apologizes for what she did, drops the knife, and runs out of the room in embarrassment. James takes the knife, stares at it for a moment, and then puts it in his pocket. It's very clear to see something is very wrong with Angela, and James can't help but feel a bit sorry for her. Also, I'd like to pause just for a moment and point something out really quick. James knows how dangerous this town is. He's come across a lot of things, and here he sees this woman in this very bad town and then takes away her only means of defense. Again, I know why he takes it away from her. It's very clearly implied what she might do with this knife, but I always just thought it was very strange that he's just kind of like, hey, listen, that weapon you have, to fight the monsters that I've been fighting, give me that weapon. Give me that. You don't need it. You don't need that. I know, I get it. I always just thought it was strange. But anyway, moving on. James can't dwell on these things. He has his own problems to deal with. And so he continues walking around the endless halls and various rooms of this rundown, rotting apartment complex. Eventually, he finds himself at the last door of the building, but then his radio starts going wild again. As he enters the room, he comes face to face with the reason for it, the giant pyramid head. James tries to immediately leave the room, but the door is now locked. He is trapped in this confined space, and the beast draws closer with a giant heavy metal knife. It is do or die. James attacks the monster, all while avoiding its attacks. This pyramid head is slow, thanks to that heavy blade it drags behind it. However, James knows damn well if that knife hits him, it's going to cleave him in two. So he avoids all of its attacks, shooting his handgun at the beast, trying to slow it down even more. The fight seems to go on forever, but then some sirens ring out in the distance, and the monster stops what it's doing, turns, and immediately leaves. James is victorious, if you could even call this a victory, because it didn't feel like one. James waits for a long moment and follows after the same way that the pyramid head went. He doesn't want to go that way, but it's the only way out of this room. And if you can believe it, It actually leads outside of these apartments and back into the foggy streets of Silent Hill. James has finally made some progress. Not long after leaving the apartment, James hears some humming and investigates. He finds the same little girl who stomped his fingers back in the apartment. James asks her what she's doing, but she doesn't answer and just calls him blind, which is a weird response. Okay, just walking up to somebody and just being like, hey, what are you doing here? And the person just being like, you blind? What does it look like I'm doing? Anyway, James notices that she has a letter and he asks her about it. The girl stands up and tells him that it's none of his business, and then adds that he didn't love Mary anyway before running off, and that took James completely by surprise. How in the world does she know about Mary? James can't follow her, so he continues to walk towards Rosewater Park. It doesn't take that long to reach the park, but when he arrives, he finds that this park is just an actual crazy maze, so it takes a little bit of time wandering around to get through the park. But when he does, he reaches the dock and finds Mary waiting for him. Only this isn't Mary. This woman is Maria, who looks and sounds exactly like Mary, which just blows James's mind. He explains to Maria that he came to Silent Hill looking for his wife, who passed away, but he got this letter from her, and rather than mock him, Maria just accepts it all. James tells her that he came to their special place, which he thought was this spot, but he guesses it isn't. Maria then asks if this was their only special place, and that's when James remembers the hotel they stayed at while they were in town. Maria tells him that Lakeview Hotel is still around and points him in the right direction of it. And as James turns to leave, Maria follows him, which catches James by surprise. He asks if she's following him, and Maria snaps back, asking if he was actually just going to leave her alone in this place, especially with all the monsters running around the town. James then nods and begrudgingly agrees to let her tag along. And my heart sank within my chest. It couldn't be true, I kept telling myself. But with each step I took, sure enough, she followed. And then the horror began to fully set in. This was an escort quest. I wanted to run as fast as my legs would allow, but when I stopped to catch my breath, I knew that when I'd turn around, she'd still be standing there, and there would be no escape. Oh no, this is an escort quest. Oh jeez, oh man, oh god, oh man, oh god, oh man, oh god. James and Maria slowly made their way towards Lakeview Hotel. The only trouble was the road was, completely gone. Duh. James already found that out earlier. But anyway, they'll need to find another way around on the long walk. Title drop. The pair decided to stop off at Pete's Bolo-Rama for some reason. As James tries to enter the building, Maria refuses to go in with him because she hates bowling. A bit weird. I don't think I've ever hated it. Like, seriously, let me just put this in perspective for a quick moment. Imagine this is all real. Like, very, very real. You were on holiday somewhere and you took a turn and then, whoa, you're in a crazy town filled with monsters that are gonna, peel your flesh off and then eat it with, like, some wine or something. These monsters want you dead in every way, shape, and form. This is a literal hell. It's life and death. But, this particular place in front of you, this bowling alley, if you will, could have the means of your survival inside, but you just don't like bowling alleys, you know? When you were 6 years old and you had a birthday party and, you know, you accidentally went up to go strike a hole-in-one. A birdie. You know, I know what it's called. Calm down, everybody. I know what it's called. It's a strike. Relax. It was a joke. But just imagine you're up there, you're getting ready to do a strike, you pull the ball backwards and then it flies out of your hand and everybody's laughing at you and everyone's pointing at you and going, ha ha ha, you're an idiot. You know, and you've just never gotten over that trauma, so you just hate bowling alleys. Here you are in this hellscape and you're like, oh man, something inside there might help me. It could be literally the key to my survival, but I just don't want to go inside. I don't like bowling alleys, really don't like them. Really, nah, I'm good. I'll go to the 7-Eleven. I see the Pyramid Head standing there just waving at me in the window, but I think I'll go over there. I'll take my chances. I like 7-Elevens better. They have nice hot dogs. Like, what the hell? I know why it's done. I know, I can hear the Silent Hill 2 fans screaming at me, but I just had to point that out. I had to get that off my chest. Anyway, where was I? As James tries to enter the building, Maria refuses to go in with him because she hates bowling. I tell ya. Oh, I already had a joke here. I just went completely off script with that bowling thing, and it turns out I had a joke written down. It was a Grand Theft Auto 4 joke. How he's always calling up his cousin. What was his name? Nico? No, what was his name? I can't remember his name. He's always like, cousin, you want to go bowling? I can't do the voice. I was gonna say how I like Maria because she doesn't want to go bowling at all hours of the day. Oh, God. Anyway, inside Pete's Bowlerama, James overhears a conversation. It's between the little girl and Eddie. Judging on how they're talking, they seem to know one another. The girl asks Eddie if he did something illegal and that's why the cops were after him. However, he tells her that he ran to this town because he was just scared. He ends the conversation saying that nobody would ever listen to him anyways and nobody would ever forgive him, so it doesn't matter, he just ran. After that, the girl takes off running when she spots James. James tries to convince Eddie to help him go after that girl. Eddie, however, he doesn't care. All he cares about is his pizza. Oh God, what I wouldn't give for a pizza right about now. Oh yes, please. Anyway, Eddie tells James that Laura will be fine on her own, so we now know the girl's name is Laura. James leaves Eddie with his pizza and takes off after Laura. Outside, Maria tells James about the girl and which way she went, and then the two decide to follow her. However, the way forward is blocked, surprise, surprise, because she was able to squeeze between two buildings, and I actually honestly have no idea how she managed to fit between those two buildings. Like, seriously, I know she's a kid and all, but no. I'm calling BS on that one. Anyway, thankfully, Maria knows another way around, and she seductively opens a lock that leads into a strip club. I mean, I don't know why she has a key to the... Oh. Okay, well, actually, that explains a few things, I think. Yeah, especially that seductive key unlocking. I gotta try that one sometime. I gotta definitely do that. I gotta do that move. A seductive key opening. I'll do that the next time I'm out with friends. Anyway, Maria and James enter into the strip club, and then they exit the strip club, and then they continue further down the road until they once again spot Laura heading into a hospital. Now we know where she is, so it's time to head in and get her, because this place is dangerous. So, it's into... Brookhaven isn't a normal hospital. This hospital is a mental institution, an asylum, and it's seen far better days, because right now the place is completely run down and falling apart. However, James and Maria aren't here to comment on the look of the place or the smell of the place, but rather find Laura, and as such, they get to work walking around and searching for her. Like most of the places within this town, it's filled with monsters, mostly a new type, the Bubblehead Nurse, which, fun fact, I always called the Bobblehead Nurse because of their head. I don't know why, but I always thought it was Bobblehead Nurse, and not Bubblehead Nurse. Anyway, these are some dangerous foes. Dangerous, but weak. No match for James and the big iron on his hip. After some more exploring around the asylum and entering into a room, Maria tells James that she needs a bit of a break because she's not feeling very well. James understands and tells her to lay down on a dirty, yucky mattress while he'll go searching for Laura on his own. Maria nods and pops a few pills and then snuggles into the dirty mattress and takes a 15-minute power nap, and James, he decides to leave the room. It doesn't take very long before James stumbles upon Laura in another room. She's not only shocked to see James, but also that he now knows her name. James asks how she knows about Mary, and Laura tells him that they met while they were both in the hospital last year. James then snaps at Laura, calling her a liar because Mary died 3 years ago, not last year. Laura gets upset, and I guess that's completely understandable, but James quickly apologizes. He tells Laura to come with him since it's really dangerous, and Laura does what she's told. However, before they leave, Laura turns to James, telling him that she forgot a letter from Mary that she has. She asks James if they can go and get it, and James says, yeah, we can go and get it. She leads James to another room in the hospital, telling him that it's in the back of the room, and that James has to walk all the way in there, searching for the letter. Once he's far enough in, Laura does the predictable and locks him inside the room as revenge for calling her a liar. James hears something and looks around in the dark room before spotting a huge monster in there. He pounds on the door, begging for Laura to unlock it and let him out, but she refuses and in fact taunts him further before leaving him trapped in the room. The monster attacks, and James is forced to fight it. Thankfully, he picked up a handy-dandy shotgun while he was exploring the hospital, and decides that now is probably the best time to use that puppy. So, he whips it out, and it doesn't disappoint. Oh god, do I love a good shotgun in a video game. After the short fight, because it's short, the monster dies, and upon its death, an ear-piercing air raid siren screams out in the distance, and the world begins to spin and sway as James clutches his head and passes out on the floor. He wakes up in a small room, confused and unsure of his surroundings. He could have sworn he heard Mary's voice though, but was that in his head as he was passing out or not? James exits the room he now finds himself in, back into the hospital, only to find it completely transformed. Blood, rust, and mold are all over the walls and floor, and the walls are peeling away, and then there's metal on the other side. It's a complete hellscape, a nightmare world. Nevertheless, James pushes forward, fighting more enemies who not only seem to be more aggressive, but larger in number. James returns to the room he left Maria in, only to find her missing, so this doesn't bode well. He exits the room and continues searching the twisted new hallways until he enters the basement of this asylum. There, he finds Maria, who he mistakes as Mary once again. This, of course, doesn't sit well with her, and she snaps at him for being selfish and uncaring. James doesn't really know what to say, but luckily for him, Maria changes the subject to Laura, and if he had found her yet. James explains what had happened earlier, and Maria suggests that they go searching for her again, and with that, Maria tags along with James once more. Yippee skippy. The two look around the hospital, but find no sign of Laura, and after solving a few more puzzles here and there, they find a new way forward. And I say forward, but it's actually down. Deep down into the bowels of this place. Much more deeper than you would think. As they progress down this strange maze-like hallway in the basement, James hears a sound, turns around, and only to see Pyramid Head has casually joined them and is now attacking Maria for fun. James and Maria then take off down the twisted hallway to avoid him. The fear is rising as they run, and eventually they find an elevator, and James dives into it at the end of the hallway, and the door begins closing on them, trapping Maria on the outside. James tries to pry open the doors to help her in, but Pyramid Head impales her on his weapon, killing her instantly. James then lets go of the door, drops to the ground as the elevator begins ascending. Once the doors open, he slowly makes his way out into the lobby of the hospital in utter silence. Once there, he notices a map telling him to go to the Historical Society. As he reads the map, he catches a glimpse of Laura casually strolling along the oddly pitch-black streets outside. James then runs outside to catch her, but she's long gone. So, with no other place to go, he decides to head to where the map was telling him to go, the Historical Society building. The Historical Society's building, it really isn't that exciting. I mean, there is a Pyramid Head painting here, which is unsettling to say the least, but, you know, James still takes his time to look around at all the photos on the wall, but after that, he finds a giant hole in the wall and a staircase leading down. So, James, you know, just does what everyone would do in that situation and starts walking down the staircase since, again, there's nowhere else to go. Soon, the casual walk becomes a jog as the stairs leading down seem to have no end at all. Seriously, they just go on forever. And as he descends, an odd foghorn blares in the distance as he runs deeper and deeper, the pace of the horn seeming to match the pace of his speed, and eventually he reaches the end of the stairs and enters into a room. Inside the room is a hole in the ground, and again, with nowhere else to go and nothing else to do, James does what likely any sane person in this situation would do. You know, completely leap into the hole without a second thought. James lands with a hard thud on the ground, quickly grabbing his flashlight and looking around his new surroundings. And just who does he spot in the complete and utter darkness? Eddie! Eddie then raises a gun to his head and talks about how easy it would be to kill a man, you know? And James, shocked, looks around and finds a dead body close by to Eddie. And so, you know, he puts two and two together and asks if Eddie killed him. Eddie counters that while, yeah, he did do it, it was only in self-defense. The man just, you know, it looked at him strangely. Who wouldn't do it? James is, like, completely taken aback by this and tells Eddie that you just can't kill somebody for looking at you. However, Eddie has completely lost the plot, and then he starts talking about how, you know, he killed some dog, or he shot at the owner, and James just can't believe what he's hearing. But then Eddie just stops and starts laughing, telling James that he's just kidding. The guy was already dead when he got here. He's just making stuff up. Then Eddie, you know, just casually exits the room, leaving James completely flabbergasted. With Eddie gone, James can finally take in his new surroundings, and it appears he's in some sort of prison. More specifically, the cafeteria of the prison. And so, he gets to work, walking around this prison to try to find a way to leave it. What he finds instead are a lot of puzzles to solve, and lots more holes to jump down. It seems like it almost never ends. And eventually, after taking an elevator down even further, like seriously, I cannot tell you how deep this place is going. Seriously. Anyway, he finds himself in a new area, and this place is more of just a maze of hallways than anything else. There is just no end to this. So much so that James himself needs to make his own map of this area because it doesn't end. Nothing much catches his eye in this place, but he does find Pyramid Head's giant knife, just, in a room. So he does what anybody would do, take the knife, and it's so heavy that he can barely walk with it. Still, after a lot more walking around in random directions, James comes across a wild sight. Maria. She's alive. Sure, she's locked in some sort of prison cell, but she is alive. James asks her what happened, but she has no idea what he's even talking about. She doesn't even seem to remember dying. James is just so confused, and that's when Maria tells James about how he forgot the VHS tape they made while on vacation in Silent Hill. This confuses James even further. Only Mary would know about that. And he asks Maria if she's actually Mary. She smiles and tells him that she'll be whoever he wants her to be. Because it doesn't matter who she is, only that she's real. She places a hand on James's cheek, and he begins to back away, confused both in mind and feelings. James doesn't really understand what's happening, but he promises to free Maria from this prison cell she's trapped in, and then he leaves the room. James thinks more about what's just going on here as he navigates this mess of endless halls until he's stopped by the sound of a monster, and Angela screaming for her daddy to stop. James rushes towards the sound and enters into a nearby room and finds Angela on the ground next to a strange monster. The monster then turns to James and attacks as Angela just continues to sit on the ground, motionless. James whips out his trusty shotgun and starts blasting at the beast, and it doesn't take long for the monster to fall. Nothing, and I mean nothing, can withstand the awesome power of the holy shotgun. Can I get an amen? Amen! Praise the shotgun! The creature writhes around on the ground dying as James approaches Angela, asking if she's okay. She stands up and starts violently kicking the monster to death, even going as far as smashing a TV down on top of it. James tries to calm her down, but she is just yelling at him furiously, telling him to leave her alone and that she knows he only wants one thing from her and that maybe he'll take that one thing from her and force it upon her and beat her up like her father did. She tells James that he's a disgusting pig and then tries not to puke. After a moment, Angela stands and accuses James of hating his wife and leaving her because he found somebody else and that he is a liar. James can't get a word in edgewise as Angela then just rushes out of the room, slamming the door behind her. And James just stands in silence for a moment and tells himself that he would never do something like that to Mary. He's not that kind of a guy. And after another moment, James composes himself and exits the room back into those long, winding corridors. And after a few more puzzles that unlock the way forward, James finally finds the room Maria was in, only she's dead. James doesn't understand what's going on, and he grieves for her. This whole thing reminds James of losing his wife all over again. It's the exact same feeling. And with nothing else left for him here, he leaves the room and continues looking for a way out, and thankfully he finds one. The only problem is, Eddie is blocking the way. He's surrounded by dead people, and becomes very hostile towards James. He confesses to killing all the people because they bullied him, and he's just completely lost his mind, so much so that James asks if he's gone nuts. This really wasn't the smartest move on James's part, as Eddie then draws his gun and fires it at James. James pulls his own gun out and starts shooting at Eddie, causing him to flee into the next room, and James follows after him, I guess. In the new room, Eddie continues to talk about all the murders he's been, doing, and he goes into graphic detail about them, showing absolutely no remorse for them. In fact, he seems rather proud and happy about all the murders. He tells James that the two of them aren't so different, and then he attacks James again. James draws his weapon once again, aims it at Eddie, and pulls the trigger, this time hitting Eddie and killing him. James then stands over Eddie's body, looks down at his own shaking hands, because he's just killed a person. Not one of the unspeakable monsters he's been killing thus far, but an actual living, breathing, thinking person. James then pushes all the thoughts down and exits the room, which thankfully leads him outside to the lake, and to the docks, and to a boat. Let's not question how James got here, by the way. Let's not question any of that. But James notices a light on the other side of the lake, and realizes that that is the hotel he's been trying to reach. So he hops into the boat and starts rowing. As James pulls up to the hotel dock, he deep down inside knows that this is the special place. This is his final destination. He's been through a lot so far, but finally he can see if Mary really is here like the letter said. James enters the hotel and finds a map close by. He picks it up, and when he does, he notices something strange. Room 312, the room he and Mary stayed in, has "Waiting for You" written on it. Could it really be true? It has to be. Now, while the map caught his eye, something now caught his ear. Music. James makes his way towards the music and finds himself in a small eating area, like a little dining room. Nobody's around, so he makes his way over to the piano, and when he does, a loud ring sounds out from it, startling him. It's Laura. It was her playing the piano and pranking him, I guess. Laura sits down and tells James that she already knows he's here looking for Mary, and that's why she is here too. She then pulls out a letter she got from Mary, and James reads it. In it, Mary writes to Laura saying that if she got this letter, that she's far away now and in a quiet and beautiful place. She tells Laura that she understands how she feels about James from the way she spoke about him, but deep down, he is a nice guy. She goes on to explain to Laura that she loves her and that had things been different, she would have adopted her and James and, they could all be a happy family together. And it ends with Mary wishing Laura a happy 8th birthday. After reading the letter, James turns to Laura and asks how old she is, and she tells him that she turned 8 a few weeks ago. James then understands that Mary can't have died 3 years ago like he thought, because this letter is so new. And she really must be here in this quiet, beautiful place. Laura tells James how she and Mary used to talk about Silent Hill all the time when they were in hospital together, and that, she loved this place so much, and that is why Laura came here, to look for her. And she also has another letter that James can read, which would explain everything to him. Only when she checks her pockets, she can't find the second letter, and in a panic, Laura leaves the room to search for it, leaving James on his own. Now, all alone, James returns to looking for Mary. He knows he doesn't have the key for the room they stayed in, but he does find a note talking about where to find it, along with a tape he left behind. A home video he recorded of their stay when they first visited Silent Hill. After a little searching around, James finds both the key and the VHS tape, and so he heads up to the room 312, the room they stayed in. Once in front of the door, he uses the key to unlock it and enter inside. But sadly, Mary isn't in the room. But what he does find is a VHS player. So, he takes the tape he found, pops it in, clicks it on, and sits down to watch the tape. In the tape, Mary talks to James, who's filming, and she seems so happy but is sad that they have to leave Silent Hill and their vacation. And she asks that she can come back someday before she starts coughing. Suddenly, the tape begins to glitch out, and then shows James standing over Mary's bedside in her hospital room. He gives her a little kiss, and then quickly places a pillow on her face before the tape cuts to static and distortion. James sits in silence as he realizes the horrifying reality. He killed Mary. He killed his wife, and he remembers it all now. Everything he did. Just then, Laura bursts into the room and runs up to James, asking if he found Mary or her letter yet. James looks at Laura and tells her that Mary isn't here. She's dead. Laura then asks if she died because of her sickness, and James shakes his head and confesses that he killed her. Laura then screams at James and starts beating him up. She then stops and tells her how Mary would always wait for him and that she loved him so much, so why on earth would he kill her? And all James can say is that he's sorry. Then Laura runs out of the room crying. After she leaves the room, something strange happens. James's radio starts to crackle and come to life with static coming through. Mary's voice is heard through the static, and she's begging James to come to her, telling him that she's nearby and that she needs him. So James stands up and exits the room in a hurry, but the moment he leaves the room, the hotel lobby and hallway has changed completely. The whole place looks like it's been burned down. But this isn't something James honestly cares about. He heard Mary's voice clear as day, and now he wants to find her. He knows what he did, but something's going on. She has to be here. He runs down through the building, going from room to room, searching for Mary. He opens the door to the stairwell and finds the whole place is on fire, and Angela is standing nearby. Angela turns to James and mistakes him for her mother before realizing the truth. She seems deeply, deeply depressed and apologizes for her mistake. James tells her that it's okay. Angela looks at James and tells him thank you for saving her, but at the same time, she really wishes he hadn't saved her. She didn't want to be saved, and she doesn't want his pity, because she's not worth saving or sorrow. Then, her tone changes, almost to a mocking sort, asking if James wants to save her, to love her, and to heal her pain. James doesn't say anything, but backs away slowly, lowering his head. Angela nods, telling him that she thought as much. She then tells James to give her back the knife he took from her a long time ago now. James looks at her and refuses to hand over the knife. She smiles and asks him if he's planned on using it on himself instead. James shakes his head and says he would never ever do such a thing. Angela then turns and walks up the flaming staircase in silence, and James tries to follow after her, but the flames grow stronger, blocking him from going with her. He comments on how hot it is, and Angela stops, turns around and tells him that it's always been this way for her. And then she turns back around and keeps walking up the staircase to her own fate. James lowers his head once again, leaves the room, and continues on his way. He walks through the charred remains of the hotel until he makes his way to another room, and in this room he finds two pyramid heads and Maria, who they've got tied up and upside down. James screams for the two of them to leave them alone, and he's sick of everything going on. Maria screams for help as the two pyramid heads turn towards her and stab her through with giant spears. James screams and drops to his knees as the two pyramid heads turn their attention on him. James then nods because he understands. He knows who they are, and he knows what's going on. They're here to punish him over and over and over again for his crimes. But he doesn't need them anymore. James stands and begins his fight with the two of them. And it's tough. James knows if they can hit him just once, it's over. And he avoids them as best as he can, shooting them at any chance he can with any gun he has, but the bullets seem to have no impact on them. Still, James keeps running and gunning to the best of his ability until the two of them just stop their attacks, walk towards each other, lifting their own helmets and stabbing themselves, ending the fight. James won, but it really doesn't feel like a victory. He continues forward and up a long rickety staircase until he finds Mary waiting for him at the top. James then shouts out for her, only for her to turn around and ask if he'll ever stop mistaking her for Mary. Because this is Maria, alive, again, after she was just killed, again. Only this time, she actually does look like Mary now. She tells James that Mary is 100% dead. He did kill her, but it doesn't matter because they can be together, her and him. James shakes his head and tells Maria that he doesn't want her or need her anymore, and this angers her, but James is steadfast. She screams at James, telling him that he deserves death, and then she transforms into a monster. James once again pulls out his gun and begins shooting her to defend himself. Maria unleashes a wave of moths at James for some reason that attack him, but he avoids them and continues shooting. But it doesn't take long before Maria drops to the ground on the brink of death. James then walks over to her, aims his gun at her, and pulls the trigger, ending all of this for good. James is then transported to another place where the real Mary lays in front of him, or at least a memory of her. James asks her, begs her for forgiveness. Mary confesses that she actually wanted to die, to stop the pain. James tells her that's why he did it. He wanted to help her, but then he stops himself and tells her that that isn't true at all. He hated her, and he wanted his old life back, and that's why he did it. Mary shakes her head and tells James that that isn't true, because if it was, he wouldn't look so sad. James then looks at her and she smiles, telling him that she forgives him for what he did, and that he needs to go on and, move on with his life. She then gives James a letter, and he stands up and leaves her. And as he does, he reads the letter as he leaves Silent Hill, with Laura by his side. And you know something, pal? I'm actually going to put up the entire scene here of the letter being read, because personally, I could never do it justice. Nobody wants to hear me read this letter. But here you go. Here is the full scene, and hopefully I don't get in trouble for putting this up, but here it is. Enjoy.
In my restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday. but you never did. Well, I'm alone there now, in our special place, waiting for you. Waiting for you to come to see me. But you never do. And so I wait, wrapped in my cocoon of pain and loneliness. I know I've done a terrible thing to you. Something you'll never forgive me for. I wish I could change that. But I can't. I feel so pathetic and ugly laying here, waiting for you. Every day I stare up at the cracks in the ceiling, and all I can think about is how unfair it all is. The doctor came today. He told me I could go home for a short stay. It's not that I'm getting better. It's just that this may be my last chance. I think you know what I mean. Even so, I'm glad to be coming home. I've missed you terribly. But I'm afraid, James. I'm afraid you don't really want me to come home. Whenever you come see me, I can tell how hard it is on you. I don't know if you hate me or pity me, or maybe I just disgust you. I'm sorry about that. When I first learned that I was going to die, I just didn't want to accept it. I was so angry all the time, and I struck out at everyone I loved most. Especially you, James. That's why I understand if you do hate me. But I want you to know this, James. I'll always love you. Even though our life together had to end like this, I still wouldn't trade it for the world. We had some wonderful years together. Well, this letter has gone on too long, so I'll say goodbye. I told the nurse to give this to you after I'm gone. That means that as you read this, I'm already dead. I can't tell you to remember me, but I can't bear for you to forget me. These last few years since I became ill, I am so sorry for what I did to you, did to us. You've given me so much, and I haven't been able to return a single thing. That's why I want you to live for yourself now. Do what's best for you, James. James, you made me happy.
And that's it. The end. I have no shame in admitting that Silent Hill 2's story is pretty damn flawless. Maybe a little bit confusing at first, but still, it's really good. It's a story filled with so much emotion, mostly negative emotion, but emotion nonetheless. I also have no shame in admitting that much like the first game, I did find myself slightly confused with key moments within the story itself. And that is probably just because I am dumb, and that's something I also have no shame in admitting. I'm dumb. These moments that confused me at first, on my very first playthrough, were the big reveal for James and what was actually going on with Angela. First off, let's discuss Angela. And with YouTube being what it is, I have to beat around the bush, and I don't like the fact that I even have to. That's a whole can of worms. But Angela was being taken advantage of as a child and teen by her own father. I think her brother as well, but I'm not 100% sure it was explicitly stated that the brother was part of it. I could be wrong. The mother did know about it, that is for sure, and the father is 100% confirmed, so let's just stick with the father at least. And even just him on his own, it's still an unspeakable evil for what he did. And when I first played this game, I didn't actually fully grasp what had happened to Angela, even though the symbolism was explicitly clear what was going on, and a lot of the smaller details. I knew she killed her father, that much I completely understood, but the rest went over my head. And it wasn't until my second playthrough, when I didn't have as much paranoia and fear, and I could sort of relax, as it were, I was able to put all the smaller details together, and that's when a lot of Silent Hill 2 really clicked for me. And it's good because, well, the game really is good, and it really does deserve your full attention. Now, personally, I won't really touch upon Angela's subject. It's a heavy subject, and honestly, it's not my place to talk about. I'm also not smart enough to even discuss it or weigh in on the situation whatsoever. But there is one thing I do want to say about Angela's story. It's sad. It really is. There is no happy ending for Angela at all. And that aside, I think her story is actually told really, really well. And it's a shame that Angela was called to Silent Hill and forced to go through the hell of it, because I'm not going to get into the morality of what she did and why she did it. That, again, is not for me to comment on, but I think it goes to show that Silent Hill itself has no real morality. It doesn't matter what your reasons were, in Silent Hill's eyes, murder is murder. So, I think in that aspect, it's really good. The only downside I could think of when it comes to Angela's story is I really think that there was more to tell there. I honestly really, really do. And Eddie as well. But this isn't their story, this is James's story. And we'll just leave it at that. The second thing that flew over my head was the VHS tape moment and James coming to the realization, and the player, what really is going on here in Silent Hill. That James killed his wife. Now, the twist itself wasn't the problem. The problem is, I didn't see it. You see, in the tape, James walks over to Mary, gives her a little kiss, and then everything quickly goes to static. Like camera blur and stuff. You see this like one little frame with something happening, but I think the whole thing with the tape, it takes about 10 to 11 seconds, if even that. And personally, I had no clue what was going on. It just happened so fast. There's nothing really happening in the background. And then James is like, well, I killed my wife. And I was like, you did? I didn't see that. I know that this isn't a big detail, a big thing for some people. I know some people clearly got the message. But in Australia, there was so much censorship going on. And there still is to this day. And I thought something happened and was just completely censored. So it went right over my head. However, upon replaying it for this, I did notice that it is just very staticky. Personally, I know how this is going to sound, because I know some people want the ambiguity of it. I know that people do want that, and they don't need the spectacle, I guess we could say, of what actually happened. But in my opinion, I think it would have been very fitting for the game and very unsettling for the player to have to sit there and, in a way, watch it. We see it in movies all the time, like a smothering of a pillow, but I think that the tape should have held on that moment, really sink in who you've been playing this entire time. And I don't know, maybe that's just me. It did go over my head at the time, but yeah, that's the only really negative stuff about the story I have to say, if you even want to call those things negative. The rest of the story is really wonderful, especially the endings, I feel. I'll get to the endings a little bit later, but yeah, Silent Hill 2, it's a great story. It's stood the test of time. It's really great twists, and it really points the mirror towards you, the player, and asks you questions about morality, loss, and acceptance. I, to that point, hadn't played too many games that made me feel the way Silent Hill 2 has, and I still think today it resonates with players as a whole. In fact, Silent Hill 2 was so influential that it would go on, and I know I don't really talk about this, but it would go on to inspire future game developers and people working in film, but most notably, for better or for worse, the rest of the series. And like I said, I don't bring it up very often, but Silent Hill 2 was so impactful and so big that its ripples are still felt within the franchise today. And again, I won't really say if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm only bringing this up now because it will impact future videos going forward. There are a few things about Silent Hill 2's success that do bug me, and it does come up later on, so I'm only laying the groundwork here and now. But the story, on its own, it's fantastic. Personally, I believe the mark of a good story is one that you find yourself returning to long after the credits have finished. If you're mowing the lawn or doing the dishes, maybe even pooping, you start to think about moments from the book you read, or the movie you watched, or in this case, the game you played. And if that happens and you still sit there going, man, oh yeah, that's a fantastic story. You've experienced something great. And for me, and for many other people across the world, that is Silent Hill 2. Even years later, you'll be sitting there thinking to yourself, that was a really good game, I had a great time. And truthfully, I wish I was more intelligent so I could break down a lot of the elements within this game, but I'm not. I'm not even going to pretend to be smart. I got no doubt in my mind that there are plenty of videos out there on YouTube that break down the story and really get into the nitty and gritty of it, but I can't do that. The best I can say is I really enjoyed Silent Hill 2, and we'll just leave it at that, pal. To the shock of maybe just my mother, Silent Hill 2's gameplay is pretty much exactly the same as the first game, even down to the wonky tank controls. All the controls are exactly as you would expect them to be, coming from Silent Hill 1. However, the big difference here is James can now be moved around with the power of the analog stick. Wow! Wowzers! It's amazing! Technology! Now, I hear you. The PlayStation 1 did have an analog controller. I know. But the first game really was primarily played on the D-pad for movement. This game now has the analog stick, and I think that's really, really good. I like the analog stick. Now, the controls themselves are really inoffensive. They're nothing to write home about. Even the weapon controls pretty much are exactly identical as the first game. You need to ready up your weapon for an attack with one button, and then execute the attack with another button. And you've still got access to the inventory, and from the inventory you can heal yourself, reload your guns, switch weapons, you can combine objects for puzzles, and yeah, it's really your standard fare with an inventory. I mean, there's nothing, it's an inventory, what do you want me to say? Now, outside of the inventory, you've also got your handy dandy map, which you will most likely be using quite frequently. Another thing I wanted to bring up is the difficulty. Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of keen-eyed viewers out there noticed that I was having an oddly easy and breezy time with the game. And that is because I was actually playing this game on easy mode. Not normal or hard mode, but easy mode. And that was not my intention. Truthfully, this is somewhat funny for me, because when I first played Silent Hill 2, I accidentally set the game to hard mode, and I didn't notice until I was pretty much done with the game itself. I remember complaining to a friend online about how hard and unforgiving the game was, and he was just totally confused. And he was like, it's not hard, what the hell are you talking about? So, imagine my surprise when I eventually came to notice I had made a very stupid mistake. And that was because I set the game onto hard mode accidentally, and I couldn't even beat the game. I had gotten all the way to the hotel, I had run out of bullets, I had run out of healing items, and I couldn't actually beat the game. To do it, I probably would have had to do like a no-hit challenge with the pipe. I'm sure somebody could do it, but I couldn't do it. Imagine my surprise this time when I once again made my stupid mistake, only in reverse. Now, how this came about is because at the beginning, when I capture footage for these games, I try to get an assortment of footage because, truthfully, I'm not 100% sure what I'll use or what I'll talk about. I just need the footage. I usually end up with, like, a ton of footage I never, ever use. And when I was going to talk about this game, I was going to talk about, you know, the difficulty settings, you know, hard, medium, normal, easy, hard, and the puzzle difficulties, because you got puzzle difficulties as well. And they're independent of each other. But I was getting the footage for that, and you can see it in the background now that I'm just flipping around, and again, I don't know what I'm gonna get. But I accidentally, when I went to go to the next difficulty setting for the puzzles, I accidentally set it to easy mode, and I didn't realize it until I was... Oh man, where was I? I think it was Brookhaven Hospital, I think. I remember having trouble with that fight when I played it on normal mode. I remember having trouble with that fight, but this time it was just like super easy breezy. And I was like, what the hell's going on? And then I realized my mistake. So yeah, don't be upset with me. We all make mistakes. But even on normal mode, this game is not hard. On hard mode, it can be hard, but on normal mode, it's not. And again, with the puzzle difficulty settings, you can set those independently of the regular difficulty settings, and that will affect how a puzzle will be. Sometimes it's really easy to solve a puzzle. Sometimes it's more involved and elaborate. I, in some respects, like the harder puzzles, but I can sort of also understand why some people don't want that. The puzzles really do slow the game down a little bit, but I liked them on a harder difficulty setting. But for this one, I just did standard fare. Outside of difficulty settings and my mistakes, the only trouble I really had with the controls themselves were it was the camera. But the camera, the messing around with it, that's nothing new. The first game had camera issues, the second game has camera issues, and you can probably tell where the rest of that is going to go. It mostly comes into play within the tight confines of buildings, most notably the apartments earlier on and the prison in the later game, but it doesn't really destroy your immersion or anything when it comes to the game. So yeah, those are about the only thing I have to complain about. Just the camera controls and the tank controls, but I've never liked tank controls, so I'm not going to hold it against this game. Silent Hill 2 is not reinventing the wheel by any means. They know what worked from the first game, they stuck with it, and honestly, when it comes to gameplay, there's not that much to talk about. So I'm not really going to waste your time, and we'll just move on here. Puzzles! They make their grand return for Silent Hill 2. They were a core component in the first game, and they serve the exact same function in the sequel, which is good. The puzzles are in some way a highlight of the Silent Hill games. Some are done really well and require actual thought and effort to solve. Surprise, surprise. Some, of course, require you just to pretty much collect some items and then combine them together with no real thought or whatsoever. But they never really bothered me. I think it's because I like them. Because they're essentially better than the standard tile sliding puzzle, which I absolutely cannot stand. I hate those puzzles, the sliding tile ones. I hate them. If they're in a game, I hate it. So, thankfully, Silent Hill 2 doesn't do that type of a puzzle, which is good. One of the puzzles, which I actually cut out of the story, relies on all the things that make Silent Hill good, which is fear, panic, and blind luck, which the blind luck is not something that makes Silent Hill great, but you get what I'm saying. Now, on the surface, that could sound pretty terrible, but it actually really isn't. You need to figure out a door combination using nothing more than the highlighted numbers on a keypad as your clue. That's the blind luck aspect of it. The fear and panic aspect come in the form of monster attacks. The longer you take to figure out this puzzle, the more damage you'll end up taking, and the more damage you end up taking, the more health items you'll use, and eventually you'll just die. Now, the funny thing is, for this video, I accidentally got it correct on the first time, and I didn't even realize it. I didn't even realize it whatsoever. I kept trying to punch away, and I'm like, why isn't this working? I can't get it. But it was because I had already solved the puzzle, and all I had to do was just walk out the door. But yeah, I've always enjoyed the puzzles on offer within Silent Hill 2, and even the first game. They almost never feel cheap, rushed, or tossed in for nothing more than the sake of padding, which I like. I also don't think too many of them are overly complex. Yes, they do make you think, but they're not overly complex, even on the harder difficulty. And that, again, is something I brought up. You can flip around the difficulty settings of the puzzles independent of what difficulty you're playing the game as. The only time I think puzzles really kind of bogged down, and it wasn't even really puzzles, it was just the prison section of the game. That whole thing just went on forever, and there was a ton of puzzles. I think in the prison section, I think there's like 3 or 4 puzzles, I want to say. And it is just so long that it's just, I don't know. I don't like the puzzle, the prison of the game. I just don't like it. I really do feel like it's sort of like the first game, because the first game had like this just gauntlet of puzzles towards the end. I feel like the prison section is kind of like that. Like I said, I think they're really good. I enjoy them. And this game even has optional side quest puzzles you can do, which is very awesome. I won't go into what those are. I'll just say it's got an elevator system, and then there's an elevator and a PA system. It's a really well done puzzle. It's completely optional. Very, very good, and I like it a lot. I think there's another optional, I think there's a few actually optional puzzles in this game, but I like the fact that they're optional and really lean into that survival horror aspect. Do you really want to go and try to get that puzzle for maybe a good reward? And if you do, is it worth the effort you did? No, maybe you shot a few bullets you could have saved. So, I don't know. Look, I'll be honest with you, there's not much I can really say about the puzzles. They're very well done. They're puzzles. They sometimes make you think. Thumbs up. None of them are really that annoying. However, if you do want a little bit more, I could tell you a personal story. Some people really like the personal stories I tell about the games I cover. So if you like that, then stick around. If you don't, go to the next section, which is helpfully timestamped. You're welcome. There's one puzzle in this game that you have to be able to read an analog clock, and some of you might be already understanding where this is going to go. But I didn't know how to read an analog clock, and I was a teenager when I played this game. I know, ha 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 ha, I get it. Idiot person can't read analog clock. I got it. I also can't read 24-hour time, so there you go. A bit more ammunition for the comments. I had bad schooling, but I couldn't figure out this puzzle because I couldn't read analog time. So I had to go and talk to my dad, and my dad sat me down and taught me how to read an analog clock. And yeah, again, I know I was a teenager, a late teenager, but still, it's a pleasant memory, and I don't have a lot of pleasant memories when it comes to my parents, but that is one of them. And yeah, so thanks to Silent Hill 2, I can read an analog clock now. Did it help me in life? Not really. All my watches are still digital, but still, hey, you know another thing too? Hey, I still like Velcro. Listen, you ready? Velcro. I still have it on my watch, and it's a digital watch. So there you go. I can read an analog clock, but I don't. There you go. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, let's move on to music, shall we? So I have to confess something to you. I actually have like 2 pages worth of script dedicated to just the music. And I read my script. I recorded my script. And then I listened to what I said. And honestly, it was terrible. The truth is, explaining Akira Yamaoka's music, the music within any Silent Hill game, is difficult. Because the music is so hard to describe that when you try, you just end up sounding crazy. There are only so many ways you can describe a song sounding beautiful when it sounds like a screeching car that needs to be compacted. In fact, it probably was a screeching car in the middle of getting compacted, and someone was banging on a drum as well. The truth is, Akira Yamaoka's music in Silent Hill is an absolute home run. It's a fantastic soundtrack. He looked at what he did with Silent Hill 1 and then just told his past self, hold my beer. This soundtrack is held in high regard among Silent Hill fans, mostly the ones I know. I don't know if it really is that great, but from everyone I've ever spoken to, if I said to them, hey, which is your favorite Silent Hill soundtrack, they always say Silent Hill 2. In fact, chances are you've probably heard a song from this game and you didn't even realize it. Most people know Theme of Laura, The Day of Night, and or the absolutely beautiful Promise Reprise. This soundtrack is truly majestic, and there is no if, buts, or ands about it. My favorite band is 9 Inch Nails, and Tool as well, but 9 Inch Nails has this sort of industrial sound to it. In fact, you just go and listen to Quake's soundtrack, which is done by 9 Inch Nails, Trent Reznor. It's such a strange experience. It's like tapes being ripped, and metal being pounded, and gears being cracked, and oil being spilled, and violins being played backwards or something like that. It's a strange amalgamation of things you would never ever expect to hear in a song, and yet somehow it is in a song, and somehow is also exceedingly beautiful, hauntingly beautiful. That is the music within Silent Hill 2, but not all of it. A lot of it, like Promise Reprise, is your classical standard beautiful song. Theme of Laura, again, is another one of those songs. There are only so many ways I can say this. Silent Hill 2's soundtrack is phenomenal. You just need to go out and listen to it. Now, again, like the first game, The music here isn't always omnipresent. You won't just be hearing a song on loop repeatedly. There will be times you'll be walking around in this game and there is no music playing at all. All you hear is your footsteps, which is phenomenal. Now, in my humble opinion, I believe when compared to Silent Hill 1, Silent Hill 2's soundtrack is much better. But I think it comes down to flexibility. I think with Silent Hill 2, the game is much more cinematic than the first game. And because of that, Akira Yamaoka had more emotion to play with and more quiet moments to play with, rather than just constant fear and dread building in a crescendo. This doesn't have that. And I think it's because of that flexibility, that you get a better soundtrack. However, I should note that I think Akira Yamaoka, I could be pronouncing that name wrong, I do apologize, I don't mean any insult, but I think he had to experience how to create the soundtrack for the first game to create a better soundtrack for this game. He had to walk in order to run, right? Now, I could sit here and try to explain all the beautiful songs and how they all work and so on and so forth, but I don't have the musical knowledge on how to do it. I don't know how to really explain it to you. Once again, explaining the music in this game is kind of like the Pepe Sylvia meme. You can't really do it. You kind of come off sounding insane. But it is beautiful. And I keep reiterating that because it's true. The soundtrack for Silent Hill 2 is a massive recommendation from me. I think you should genuinely go out and listen to it, even if you're not going to play this game. Go and give it a listen. I do think you'll be pleasantly surprised. It is hauntingly beautiful. Akira Yamaoka is on the top of his game, and that's about it, really. That's about all I really have to say about the music. I know I could go on, but there's no point. It's a good soundtrack. Let's move on. Alright, the theories. This is the big one. This is tinfoil hat time. This is Pepe Sylvia. I keep bringing that up. I'm gonna have to get art made. But yeah, put your tinfoil hats on. We're going crazy conspiracy mode with theories here. Because there are a lot. Silent Hill 2 has a lot of theories. A lot of people love to break this game down and try to craft their own narrative, so to speak. Now, I gotta preface what I'm about to say with a few things. None of these theories are unique, for starters. A lot of people have thought about this stuff, a lot of people have come up with their own theories. These are just my own. I'm not gonna go deep into this. We'd be here forever if I did. And frankly, I don't remember a lot of the theories I had or why I thought of these theories. So I'm not gonna go deep. This is also gonna be very scatterbrained as well. And I should also point out that when you really do, with some of these theories, they do fall apart when you start to put some of the logic into it. None of these are perfect. So, yeah, don't get angry at me if my theory isn't what you think of. I've already had arguments with people years ago. It's why I stopped doing this stuff. In fact, it's why I stopped doing a lot of fandoms. A lot of people get very passionate about it, and you just come in like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if, and then people are like, hell no, and then they just start beating you up, and then you start crying, and then you're like, please stop, please. I don't know. I've had some bad experiences. But anyway, it's gonna get crazy. Hold on to your butts and try to keep up. This is gonna get wild. Okay, so first off, Silent Hill is purgatory. I don't think it's literal purgatory. Maybe it is. I don't know. Silent Hill changes depending on what game you're playing. Actually, that's another thing I should point out. I don't think this is going to be a genuinely hot take, probably. Maybe, I don't know. I don't think Silent Hill is meant to be really scrutinized. I don't think the team making the game was really thinking that deeply about a lot of the elements. I think they might have just put some stuff in and people just went wild with it. And I can understand it. And that actually ties into one of my theories. I'll get back to that one in later, but Silent Hill is purgatory. James is dead, and he's just constantly in purgatory. He never ever escapes from Silent Hill. Now, I think of this because a lot of the endings end with fog. So I don't think James ever escapes Silent Hill. Ever. In fact, this is somewhat backed up in Silent Hill 4. There's a throwaway line in that game where I think it's his dad or his uncle or something. I can't quite remember, but somebody in that game says, oh yeah, he never came back from Silent Hill. So I think Silent Hill is either purgatory and James never escaped, or James is just dead. And why I think this, again, is the fog. So that's the purgatory. He never escaped. The dead aspect is because I believe James probably went to Silent Hill to kill himself. I think Silent Hill in that aspect is sort of like the brain firing off one last memory. I think that could be what it is. He's just like reliving moments and things like that. So again, I know this is crazy, but there's an ending where James actually does drive off. It's called the water ending. I don't have the footage of it, but essentially he gets in his car, drives off a cliff and into the water below. So I think he probably might have done that before the events of the game. I know that sounds crazy, but I really do believe that. And I think when we're talking about the endings, that is the true canonical ending to the game. None of the others are actually the correct ending. I personally believe water is the true ending of Silent Hill 2. Now, another thing I believe here is Mary cheated on James and got an STD. That is her illness. It's never ever stated in the game what her illness is, but I believe it's an STD. Something, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but one of them that is fatal, or eventually will be fatal. I believe this, and I know this one is a bit of a touchy one. I know this is primarily one that people got angry at me for, so I apologize if I'm about to very much upset a lot of people. But I remember thinking this because in her letter, she mentions that essentially she did something wrong and she's sorry for it. Now, she could be referring to the fact that she just got sick and she didn't want to burden James with it. But there are a lot of phrases in the letter that hint towards her doing something before getting sick and how she never meant to put James through that particular thing. I don't think James killed her just to end her suffering in a way. I know again, if you put stuff up to scrutiny, if you put it up there, it all starts falling apart. I understand that, but just bear with me on this. I think he did it out of anger, for starters, for being cheated on, and I don't think he was a saint himself. But I think Mary, in his eyes, was. She made a mistake, and that mistake ultimately cost her her life. It might have even be passed on to James himself. And I know this sounds crazy, but there are like aspects of Maria, which I believe play into it. She's a stripper, and a lot of people say that Maria and her personification is James's lust manifesting. He wanted sexy women and, so on and so forth. But I think that perhaps it's not totally that, it's how he perceived Mary. Mary was, there's a word and I can't use it, but not faithful. Let's just put it that way. And I think that's how maybe James was perceiving Mary. I also think, like I said, James probably got whatever it was and probably was dying himself. And the illness just hasn't caught up to him yet, which again ties into the water ending. He ends himself. There was also one, I didn't think of this one. It's a well-stated theory that Mary is actually, her body is actually in the car. And he drove to Silent Hill right after ending her life and was about to end his own. That's not my theory. I like that theory, though. I really, really do. The other thing I think is that I really do like this one as well. And again, it ties into the purgatory and all that stuff. But I think that everything in Silent Hill is on a loop. James never, ever, ever leaves Silent Hill, and is constantly being tortured and punished and dying over and over and over again. And every time he dies, he just restarts from the beginning and forgets everything all over again. There are a few things that sort of hint towards that, and I think it's Eddie. Oh, almost choked there. I think it's Eddie and Angela. I think they've met James before, or at least have some knowledge of him being there. I think they're in their own hell and purgatory, but I think they do know of James on some level, because there are some aspects of how they talk that sort of hint towards that. Again, I could be reading too much into it like any of these theories, but I think that's the case. But the strongest piece of clue, whatever, I have for this is a lot of the dead bodies you find in Silent Hill, they kind of look like James. They really do. And I think all the notes you find are actually just past versions of James scribbling things down, and then a future version of him finding it. And I know that this is, and probably the logical explanation, the game devs just didn't want to create another asset. I think that's just it. They got kind of lazy. So they reused James's model as the dead bodies and then just disfigured it. I don't think they were actually thinking that deeply about it, but I like to think that Silent Hill is actually on a loop. Every time James escapes, he starts again. Every time he dies, he starts again. He never, ever leaves. Now, that is a lot of theories. I'm not going to go any deeper into it, but I'm sure everybody else has a theory on their own, and I would personally love to hear your own theory, or if you agree with one of my own. Again, I know I kind of glossed over everything here, but yeah, I'd like to hear about your own theories. What do you say about Silent Hill 2 that hasn't been said before? Well, there's nothing you can say that hasn't been said before. This game is amazing. There's a lot to love about this game. Silent Hill 2 is a game that I wish I had the skill to deep dive, into this game and really tell you about everything and crack it all apart like a ripe melon or a coconut. But I just don't have that knowledge. I don't have that skill. You will find plenty of videos here on YouTube dedicated to the theories, the themes, and the overall history of this game, this franchise. But the best I can do is just give you my own personal thoughts on the game. Silent Hill 2 is thought-provoking. It isn't afraid to talk about heavy topics, and it just really nails the tone and atmosphere of horror and survival horror as a whole. It can be dark, it can be depressing, and it does all of this without relying on a ton of gore, which is something I enjoy. Too often, I've played horror games that just throw a bunch of gross stuff at you because they believe that is what's scary. A head exploding or an eyeball popping out is just spectacle. There's nothing else there. Horror, real horror, should be something primordial. Something that really scares you. That is what Silent Hill 2 does really, really well. It shines a light on you, a human, and says, you're not so perfect. You've got demons, and they could come and get you at any moment. Now that's scary, I think. But outside of that, the gameplay is solid when compared to the first game, and it's much longer than the first game. The story and the settings are on a grander scale than the first game. It does exactly what a sequel is supposed to do. It's bigger, and it's better. And it shows, especially with the hardware upgrade from the PlayStation 1 to the PlayStation 2. The only time I think the game really does just start plodding along is the prison section, and I already talked about that. I just think it drags on a little bit too much for my own personal taste. But other than that, I really do think the game is great, it has great themes, and it keeps you engaged. Now, I also wish that the game did stick with Eddie and Angela a little bit longer. I think that there were more things to tell about them, and the game just doesn't. An extra scene or two would have really added wonders, but that's just for me. Heck, the same can be said about Maria. And I know that there is the whole Born from a Wish DLC expansion thing. I didn't cover it for this video, I apologize, but I do remember it being good, just very short, and it did add to her experience. Outside of that, I think that the music is splendid, the combat is fine, the exploration is, while linear, it is perfectly fine for what it is trying to accomplish, and I think it succeeds in what it's trying to accomplish. Another thing I won't really comment on here, which is crazy, is the graphics. Because this could be one of those times where I think my memory is failing me, but I swear that this game looked a little bit clearer and not as blurry. And I think it's because of the emulation. There was one part, I don't know if anybody noticed it, but there was one part of the game, I don't remember when exactly, but I changed a setting in the emulation and it made the game look way better and actually run a little bit better as well. So I think this is an emulation issue, or again, it's just my memory. So I won't really comment on the graphics, but I do remember when I did play it for the first time, it looked very, very good, especially for a PS2 game. I enjoyed it. Silent Hill 2, it's just a solid game all around. From beginning, middle, and end, it's solid, and I was fully engaged. No amount of playthroughs or years really do seem to have changed how I originally felt the first time I played it, and that is a statement, a testament of how great this game really truly is. I've beaten it multiple times on all the difficulty settings, gotten all the stuff, and I still love this game. There's a reason it is almost always regarded as one of the best, if not the best, PlayStation 2 game. Depending on who you talk to, I'm not here to start a fight. There's a reason for it being up there. Heck, there's a reason some people even regard this game as just one of the best games ever made. Not just on the PS2, in general, as a whole. And I can completely understand that. I think this game is great. I think it's influential. And it's just that damn good. And again, there's nothing I can really say about this game that hasn't already been said. And if I did have negatives about this game, it's tiny, tiny little criticisms that are only probably just for me. Everything negative is completely outweighed by the positives on this game. So, should you play it? Should you play Silent Hill 2? Well, yeah, like I said at the beginning of this game, you absolutely should be playing Silent Hill 2. The only problem is, an actual copy of this game commands a hefty price. And even then, you need a PlayStation 2 and probably a CRT TV. So you probably need a lot of things. Or you could play the Silent Hill HD collection, which came with Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill 3. But if it wasn't clear from my Silent Hill 1 video, and let me make this perfectly clear now, I loathe the Silent Hill HD collection. It is absolute garbage from start to finish. It is, and I'm gonna say it, it's crap. Total crap. I would not recommend you play it. Just don't even touch it. If somebody gives you the game, give it away. Don't touch it. It's not good. However, there is some semblance of hope on the horizon. The Silent Hill 2 HD, not HD, the Silent Hill 2 remake is coming soon, and it does look pretty good. It looks very good, in fact. Looks to be faithful. There are a few things about it that look a little iffy. I'm gonna reserve judgment for now. I haven't played it, but when I do play it, I'll put out like a short video for people who want to see it. But hopefully the game is good, and hopefully you can access Silent Hill 2 that way. But if you can't, either look at a playthrough or emulate it yourself, because that's the problem with these old games. They just never ever get remastered, and when they do, it tends to be garbage. So yeah, I don't know. Team Silent did they did a phenomenal job with this game. This, again, like I said, is exactly how a sequel should be. But the question is, did they do it a third time? Were they able to make Silent Hill 3 just as good as Silent Hill 1 and Silent Hill 2? Well, we're gonna have to wait for that one, because Spooky Month is officially over. So, yeah, sorry about that. But, hey, it is what it is, right? It is what it is. Hi everybody, Future Lycan here. This video was supposed to come out in 2024 for Halloween. It is now 2025, and Halloween is past. So, better late than never, I suppose. Sorry about that. There's so much happened with the making of this video. Like, I completely lost all the... everything I did for it went completely out the window. I was like almost done with the video, and then Adobe had like a heart attack and I lost everything, and then I lost my motivation. But anyway, it's here now. I apologize it took so long. But because I did take so long, and some of the information in this video was incorrect, I apologize for that. But again, because this video took so long, the level of members who have joined the channel has grown, and I wanted to just update the list now and thank everybody who has joined the channel now. So, those wonderful people are, well, for starters, Family Dog and David Welch. Now, David Welch and Family Dog get a double thank you, because not only did they join the channel on YouTube, here on YouTube, but they also joined over on my Patreon. So, an insane double thank you to the both of you for doing that. You're absolutely crazy. But thank you so much. Thank you for the support. It really, really, really does mean a whole heck of a lot. And I'd also like to thank TJ and Jack, Aaron Nelson, Amelia, Adam Myers, Miami Fred, The Rog, Joe Enderman, Dude Prinny, Noodles, Loenor's Catto, Joe and Linda, and a new subscriber who I haven't thanked yet. I'll get to that in a minute, but I also wanted to welcome in and thank very much, especially for the 2 months you've already been subscribed, Fishbowl Kraken. Thank you very, very much. I'd also like to apologize to each and every one of you, because you were supposed to be shouted out in my previous Bloodlines 2 video, but I was so depressed that I just ended the video before I even got out all my thoughts. I just ended the video, and I didn't realize I didn't shout everybody out until the video was already uploaded, and I was like, oh no! What did I do? But I do apologize. Thank you for not yelling at me. Thank you for being understanding. But you have a deep and heartfelt thank you this time. I really do appreciate it. And if you too would like your name shouted out and probably butchered, then please feel free to join here on YouTube as a member or over on my Patreon. I really do appreciate it, and the more support I get there, the more of these videos I can do. I know everybody's heard this over and over and over again by every YouTuber ever, but still, it really does mean a lot if you do join, and it really does help, especially commenting, liking, and, of course, subscribing. However, I do ask that you don't subscribe if you don't want to, genuinely. If you don't feel like I have earned not only a like, don't like it. If you don't feel like I've earned a subscription, don't subscribe. And if you don't feel like I have truly, truly, truly earned it, then please, by all means, do not feel like you have to join this channel in any capacity. The last thing I want is for someone to just do these things because it's that same old rigmarole for every YouTuber ever. I genuinely want to earn it, because nothing is more satisfying than truly just working hard, and earning it. So, if you do feel like I have earned a comment or like, a subscribe, or even joining the channel, you have my sincerest and heartfelt thanks. So, until the next video, my friends, I want to say thanks. Thanks for sticking here, thanks for being awesome, and yeah, that's it. Happy belated Halloween, everybody. Peace out, pals.